Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Guilford Selectboard meeting of Monday, November 8th, 2021. Welcome Select Board members. Welcome members of the public. I see Leslie there. I don't know who else is there. Michelle, hello. We have the rules of procedure which govern how the Select Board and the public interact. The basic premise of that interaction is civility and raising your hand when you want to be recognized. Are there any changes to the agenda order?
I do not have any.
Thank you, Peter. The minutes, I presume that we've all read the minutes of the previous meeting. Do I have a motion to accept those minutes? Thank you, Veranda. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you. Is there any discussion? That being the case, I shall take the roll call. Zahn?
Aye.
Rusty?
Aye.
Miranda?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Richard? Aye. The minutes pass. Thank you very much. On to the salt bid update, Peter. I don't see Dan here.
It's because Dan is on vacation.
Oh,
as
that's
he
correct.
informed
Oh, that's
you
right.
previously. Before I do that, I'll just give you a very brief update. I spoke with the road crew earlier this morning. This week they'll be working on replacing several culverts, grading the several roads, and getting equipment ready for winter. They're doing such things as putting on new tires, fixing a few pieces of equipment, and installing the plow frames on those trucks. As far as the salt bid update, so Dan and I finally figured out the salt bid last week, and the final bid was solely from Cargill, and it was $73 per ton, which is $4 cheaper than we were paying last year. So we went ahead and moved on with that, and because we obviously need salt for the roads this winter.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Okay, and then would you like to speak to the one-ton truck?
Yes, I'd be happy to. So, just as a quick reminder for Select Board members, per the town capital plan for this current fiscal year for FY22, we were supposed to purchase 2 trucks. One was going to be a full-size dump truck, which you did early because one became available. At that time, you had stated you're going to put off the 1-ton truck, at least temporarily. Given that it is on the capital plan, it is all, and then 2 meetings ago, you approved the transfer of this highway surplus, which was approximately $440,000, of which $135,000 of that is dedicated strictly to paving, so we can't spend that on anything else. That still leaves us a little over $300,000 surplus in the highway department. Dan got a phone call from the Ford dealer where we get our 1-ton trucks from, to let him know they have 3 on the lot, 2 are sold, and 1 is still available, and they will not be getting any from the manufacturer at least until August of next year. One of our trucks is already 10 years old, and Dan's been starting to have problems. So I shared with the Select Board a quote for that truck, and it's just basically up to you whether or not you...
Right, and we don't need to get other bids for it?
No, because there are really no one else really in the state offers these specific trucks that are geared towards municipalities.
And just to emphasize that it is in the capital
It is.
improvement plan to purchase this truck.
And the purchase price that I shared with the Select Board does not include the trade-in value of the truck that we have, which the last one was approximately $25,000, so we're expecting that.
Dan said to me on the phone about 15 to 20,000.
Oh, so it's gone down a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Which is interesting because used vehicles are like
A premium right now.
A premium right now. So maybe we'll have to ask them to negotiate a notch higher.
So
we need a motion.
So we need a decision from the Select Board whether this is something you want to move forward with, because they have another buyer that is waiting to hear whether the truck will be available.
And I can add that Dan called me and I said, do you recommend that we do this? And he said yes. And as you know, Dan is on vacation, so that's why he's not here. So do I have a motion then to purchase the 1-ton truck?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you,
that we
Michael.
purchase-
Do I have a second? Miranda, thank you. Is there any discussion? That being the case, I will take the roll. Zahn?
Aye.
Rusty?
Aye.
Miranda?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Richard? Aye. Thank you very much. The town of Guilford is going to purchase a one-ton truck and trade in the old truck. Thank you very much. Now, Sheriff Anderson, are you there? Yes. Yeah, hi, good evening. I'm Richard Wazansky, the chair of the select board, and we have Miranda and Michael here at present, and Zahn Eastis and Rusty Marine on Zoom. Good evening to you, and we're very excited about this opportunity to have an animal control officer, and we'd like you to tell us about what it is that we need to do to make it happen.
So first off, thank you for having me tonight and making time. I believe I promised your town administrator some documents, which I honestly don't remember whether I did or did not send them. It is on my list to do. If I have not, I've just had a rather busy few weeks, so budget season. My department, so I guess I need to back up a little bit. I understand there's a very short amount of time for me, so I will be quick. My department is under state statute established to provide the service of civil process, which is documents created by the Superior Court and require service. So kind of like a mail person of sorts, but for the court, as well as transport prisoners. And those are our two primary charges. We do not receive any funding through the county tax to do things like patrols or provide animal control officers or dispatch or any of the other things. I'm not going to take any more time to talk about that, but just briefly, that's the scope of our duties. We are permitted to enter into contracts to provide services to towns and various organizations. And so I'm going to use a rough estimate of about 10 years ago, our department did provide animal control services through our law enforcement contracts. We ran into several difficulties in trying to provide those services uniformly across the county. It wasn't the issue of any one town, but it was the issue of trying to explain to any given deputy at the time what the rules in each area was. And some of the issues would cross town borders. So a leash law violation in Guilford might not be a leash law violation in Halifax or Brattleboro or whatever the case may be. And this ties to both civil actions that we would take, but also civil actions that could be taken against us. Through some efforts, we tried to create a model ordinance in which all towns would be able to operate uniformly. That was not met with great reception, and ultimately we bowed out of providing animal control services any longer. Fast forward those 10 years or thereabouts, I've received by this point numerous phone calls from numerous select boards, town managers, town administrators, and interested parties. Hey, are you guys doing animal control yet? And the reason why we didn't, we would explain the story. And the document that I will provide, if I haven't already, basically summarizes everything that I'm talking about right now. So as we started recognizing the need, the demand, the problems, we were asking, is there a way that we could re-enter into providing animal control services? Because there's a great need in the county. So what we came up with is 4 core areas in which we find limitations that towns have. The first one being at-large animals, unsupervised dogs that are running around. They could be menacing, they could just be out for a joyride. Vicious animals, which is a dog that has bit someone or another animal as some form of attack. Animal registration, often we find that towns have underrepresented registration lists. And the fourth one, I'm gonna have to refer to my notes. Animals in quarantine, which is common after they've been involved in a dog bite, but there's no enforcement because there's nobody who really is there to check on them other than the health officer, which is usually a volunteer or slightly above a volunteer position, or the select board. So with this, all towns uniformly do have those those ordinances in place or that expectation in place and established under state law. And they all generally, as I've explained this to others, this kind of works like an insurance policy. Not every town needs an animal control officer today. When you need an animal control officer, you really want one because there's animal control issues that are really problematic. And when there's no one to call, that becomes very hard. As many people are aware, the select board is usually at the municipal level, usually the person for everything to fall on until otherwise delegated. So the emergency management director, the road commissioner, all those responsibilities come out of the authority of the select board, including the animal control or maintenance of animal control. And so often it's falling on the select boards to find an animal control officer. They don't last a significant amount of time, or sometimes they do, but then they move on and there's no solution. The program that we're putting together basically says that since all the towns in Windham County are going to have this problem at some point, again, I describe it as an insurance policy. When you need it, you can access it. When you don't need it, it's still contributing to the overall operation because what we do find is the problems are transient. They will move from community to community, and it's usually with the selling and buying of houses. It's with movement from apartments or other dwellings. And it could be a peaceful neighborhood, and then all of a sudden a very problematic neighborhood as a result of menacing animals. So currently we have 4 member towns. I believe it's now 4 other towns that are interested. And we've structured it with a funding model that's a little bit different than what we have done in the past for our law enforcement contracts. What we did was we said, how many hours, the group of us, the 4 towns, as well as my department, met to say, how many hours do we want to contribute to this? And so right now we're providing 16 hours a week. And I provided the cost of what 16 hours a week will be. And then we divided it, speaking of animals.
Throw that animal.
Then we divided it based on, I went with a rough formula for the first round because we didn't have data. But we divided it based on basically on population to say this is what the town's responsibility to that would be. And the 4 towns were agreeable to that model for the first year.
Mark, 16 hours total? For
A week.
16 hours a week for all the towns, not for, right.
Correct. And so then we said, okay, that's going to be, I'm going to use some rough math or rough numbers right now, but they're fairly close to the current cost of the program. So it's going to cost $20,000. And so 2 towns are Putney and Westminster. They have larger populations. They have larger animal control problems. So they're currently carrying for, I believe it's 35 or 40% of the overall cost. Then Newfane and Windham are carrying the remaining 20%, 10% each. So with that, there's just a set number and it contributes to the cost of the program. If additional towns were to enter into it, then the discussion becomes, do we increase the number of hours, which increases the cost, or do we maintain the same cost or same number of hours, which then reduces the burden to all the member towns? My vision is for this program to be county-wide, and what I'm actually referring to as regional, because Vermont doesn't really operate by county lines. It operates more by the various communities that each valley associates with. So we're going with regional. If it made sense, we'd sign on with another town if they wanted to. But as we build this out, I'm looking to scale it up to be at least 1 full-time animal control officer who's on duty each week to provide the coverage and services, and potentially scale it beyond that based on what we find for volume and need. So the second part to this is that we know that there will be times where a town, for whatever reasons, decides it doesn't want to be a member town. Through the current model, I can't fund this through the county tax, which would be the most reasonable and sensical model, but we can't. It's not provided for in state statute. So what we're currently doing is saying we're using the share program to divide out costs to the town. But when there's a town that says, you know, our ACO, we're happy with them, but they're out sick this week, or maybe they're on maternity or paternity leave, and this is just a short-term issue we don't want to sign on with the program, but we have a need right now. One of the ideas was to be able to offset the cost of this program by charging a rate, an hourly rate, to the community that had the issue, and that would just essentially be a non-member expense. To offset, or actually to prevent it affecting the member towns, what we would do is actually charge a higher rate than what we would charge the member towns, and then it will backfill into the system of the animal control budget. So basically think of it as its own pot of money. If the town of Brattleboro said, and I'm making this up, the town of Brattleboro said, hey, can we borrow your ACO for a week? We say it's going to cost X number of dollars. We put X number of dollars back into the animal control program, which benefits the member towns primarily. I've said a lot. Are there questions? Is there any areas that I can dive into?
Well, so I didn't hear you mention that in Guilford right now, we're having a bit of a problem with just animals that seem to be not taken well care of in a particular location. And would that fall under the duties of the ACO to investigate that? You laid out 4 tasks, and I didn't hear that one in there.
Yeah, so it potentially could. That is likely falling under actually a law enforcement responsibility around animal neglect or cruelty. And so with those, that very well might fall into the purview of law enforcement.
And then my other question is, and I know there probably are other questions or comments, but how do we begin to join up if the select board decided that it wanted to do that?
How do we start? I think I just need an indication from the town, whether that's the select board or the town administrator, to say, let's start. And then I'd invite in the 4 member towns with anybody else who's interested. Again, I met 3 or 4 who have interest in varying degrees. So we'd bring everybody together basically to run through the explanation that I've given all the other member towns and say, this is what it will cost for town meeting. And then it's up to the voters of if they wanted to opt in. If they said, we're not going to fund it, well, they've opted out. So it's truly a funding oriented mechanism.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments for the sheriff? Yes, Rusty.
I just want to know, is there an average of how many incidents there are per town? Do you have a record of that?
We have record. I don't know it off the top of my head.
Okay.
What I do find is that it's not so much necessarily the number of incidents, which is how we would normally measure other issues, either in a law enforcement or really any emergency service. Animals are slightly different in that a single household with a single animal could result in 40 to 60 hours worth of work over a period of, say, 2, 3, 4 months. Just that one animal. And so right now, I was actually blown away by the volume that we have across the 16 hours. My ACO, she is earning her keep and earning it well. And
Question. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Michael. Oh, I'm sorry.
Just to finish my thought, the issues she's dealing with, they're known issues to the town that they were struggling to deal with. And now we're starting to see progression through the issues, which can lead all the way even up to, in some cases, seizure of the animal. So these are involved cases where one instance can be very time consuming. But then we could also turn to 300 non-registered animals and deal with that in maybe 2 hours. So quantity is not the telling sign here.
Michael, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering, I'm a little unclear. Ordinances, are the towns you're working with keeping theirs, or are they adopting what your, I mean, you brought up the possibility of
the lesson we learned was local control. And I say that with a smile because I think I hear that the most at the Guilford town meeting, but it's present in every town meeting. So the lesson we learned is don't tell towns how to make their ordinances. And where we encourage people to go is actually VLCT. They do have a wonderful model ordinance that they just developed. A lot of towns have already worked towards it. This wasn't our intent or cause, but what we found was when we stepped out of animal control and the towns and the select board started becoming the people who were getting called, they started realizing some of the issues that we had realized. And so then they started saying, how do we fix this? And then over time, we started getting this collective, we should probably improve these ordinances. I don't want to tell any town they should or should not have a leash law. I don't want to tell any town they should or should not have a barking dog ordinance. It's truly a local issue. But that's also the second layer of this program, which is that we still encourage a town to provide or determine how it's going to handle animal control for the issues outside of the scope of this program. So the 4 issues that I identified is what we would do, but we would also serve as a focal point for calls to go. So let's say that you chose to have a barking dog ordinance. We're not going to enforce that for you. However, we would take the call and then forward it to whomever that person would be. A second problem that we found with burning out animal control officers and constables is that they were getting calls at all hours of the day, sometimes in the middle of the night, sometimes at their places of employment, who did not appreciate them doing or performing town business at their jobs. And so they said, my livelihood's more important. So what we're trying to do is at least serve as the message center to say, okay, Guilford's liaison, animal control officer, whatever you want to call that individual, or maybe it's even the select board or the constable. That person would receive the message of, hey, there's a barking dog at 123 Main Street, and we can deal with that however we want to.
Are there any other questions? Yes, Miranda?
Oh, I wonder if publicizing the fact that we have this animal control service might act as a deterrent, for people to, to publicize what our ordinances and the fact that we have a plan in place to deal with it might help people be more compliant in advance. Have you found that there's more compliance if there's more clarity and more possibility of enforcement?
I don't know the answer to your question. I would suspect no, but we also haven't been overly publicizing this program because we started it off with a unique pilot for the first year that we're not really sure what we were going to learn or see or how it was going to work. So that was somewhat intentional not to be vocal about this program. Knowing that just by the volume of calls I get from board members and or town managers and administrators about this program, I fully anticipated all we have to do is after year 1 say, hey, we're doing this, and everybody's going to start calling, and we're starting to see those calls.
Okay, we have to start moving on. And I see that Zahn has a question or a comment, Zahn?
Yeah, thank you. I just wondered, you just partly answered it right there. You've been working on this project for a year now. So I'm wondering if, in addition to the services you're providing, if there's also data that you're collecting that you make available to towns in order to be able to make this decision. So just thinking forward into the future for being able to report about it and so forth.
Yeah, and just to share, we collect 2 forms of data. One is quantitative, and as I mentioned earlier, it's not necessarily a great way to measure the use of the resource, but for us, that's how we track all of our stuff. So one is quantitative, but then we also generate a narrative written by the ACO of what activities they were involved with for the town each time they're engaged in the town. So and all the towns that are members to it can see, like, hey, right now in Wyndham, we're dealing with a pretty advanced nuisance animal that is terrorizing a neighborhood. I mean, many select boards have had people come before them who are dealing with very real problems with a dog that's just running loose. Animals have been killed. I mean, the animal cruelty, this can expand to a much broader conversation, and it's problematic for residents. So you get to see that, and you get to see it across all the member towns, which is really useful that we found.
Noella, did you have something to ask, Noella? Noella? You're on mute.
There. So Mark, you sent me an email on Sunday in response to correspondences I've been having with Ashley, and Richard brought up the particular particular, and I've been speaking with Richard too via email in regards to the particular neglect abuse case in my neighborhood. And when Richard mentioned the 4 tasks that you laid out, but the neglect and cruelty wasn't mentioned. Is it in fact not part of like Ashley's, job within the sheriff's department? Is it the state police that should be getting involved? I was under the impression that would definitely fall underneath, Ashley's, line of duty.
So originally when we created the program, it was as a civilian. And so because animal cruelty and neglect do fall under the criminal statutes, that would be a law enforcement issue to handle. Ashley has since indicated her desire to become a law enforcement officer, so we might be readjusting the program. That's going to, again, be a discussion with the member towns. We can separate it, and she could have 2 jobs with my department, or 2 assignments, I should say. Or we can continue, or we can merge them into one. If we merge them into one, I think that would actually make a lot of sense. Personally, within law enforcement circles, you usually see people corral into certain specialties. And so one of my specialties was impaired driving enforcement, and I was just really good at it. You see other specialties about working with juveniles. And so people who work with juveniles become really good at it, and they become resources to the law enforcement community in those areas. And so with that, animals are unto their own right, their own community, and they develop relationships with veterinarian technicians, with vets, with the Humane Society, and the various associations involved in animal rights and protecting animals. So to that end, it makes a lot of sense to merge it, but I'm also sensitive that there are towns that have a desire that we increase some of the civilian uses of personnel, and that we not have everything be a police officer or deputy sheriff responding to the crime.
Peter, did you have something that you wanted to
I
do?
was just wanted to say, just so we don't take too much time on the topic, if this is something that the select board feels is of benefit to the town, I would suggest making a motion, and if the motion passes, I can work with Mark.
Yes,
on
I think
follow-up details.
that's what I had in mind. Do I have a motion that we'd like to proceed with negotiating with Mark or discussing with Mark, joining in the consortium of towns? That's a motion, Veranda? Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Michael seconds. Is there any further discussion? Okay, I'll take the roll then. Zon? Rusty?
Aye.
Veranda?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Richard? Aye. Okay, that passes. So we're going to be further in touch with you, Mark, and thank you for a very articulate presentation. It's compelling, and we hope that we can join the other towns in Windham County utilizing what I hear is she's a very good animal control officer, right?
I'm very lucky to have her. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll be in touch, Mark.
Okay.
Thank you.
Onward and upward. Then the DVFiber update's on.
Yes, thank you. Very quickly, I just want the annual meeting of DVFiber is on Wednesday, at which there will be just a budget update. And the strong notion there that we need to know about is that because of the ARPA funds that are coming down from the federal government through for broadband through the state of Vermont, our district recently received a grant of $4.1 million to begin doing what's called pre-construction work for the district. So the money is starting to flow. We are in negotiation. We're finishing up negotiations with GWI, who is the partner, the B Corp private partner that we're working with to accomplish our goals. And that the first step out will be reaching into the 6 identified unserved towns in the district, and that should begin to happen I think it's the second quarter of next year that we'll see that happen, and it's all going to go pretty quickly, so that then the other 18 towns in the district would start to come right into place pretty quickly. So a lot of hard work by many people and a lot of strong commitments, but it's beginning to happen. I can't believe it.
I want to thank you for your great work on this, Zon. You've really been putting it in. And if folks don't know, Zon is now on the executive committee of DVFiber, and we're very happy that it's a Guilfordian who's representing us on that committee at the executive level. So thanks so much, Zon. Are there any questions or comments for Zon?
Son, I realize it would be hard to say, but do you have any thought about how many years it will be until we?
Well, but yeah, what I can say, Veranda, is that the original plan called for all 24 of the towns to be serviced within 10 years. And that was built on a certain kind of model.
Yes.
And Guilford was definitely in the last layer of those towns.
Yes.
But it happens now because of COVID and because of the ARPA funds that are coming down, that this is all going to go much quicker. And I can't say with certainty, but it looks as if the entire 24 towns might be done, might have adequate, or at least potentially adequate internet service within 3 years.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zon. Any other questions or comments for Zon? All right, thanks very much for that great update. And now on to the warrants. Veranda.
Okay. I move that we pay the following warrants. Payroll week 10/31/21 for the sum of $5,893.13. Payroll week 11/7/21 for the sum of $11,376.83. Expense warrant number 2209 for the sum of $386,319.12. Expense warrant number 2209S for the sum of $3,471,667.07. Expense warrant number 2209T for the sum of $122,588.32 for a grand total of $3,997,843.27.
Do I have a second? Zon
I just got a
seconds
quick
it.
question. Why is the payroll double from one week to the next?
Because select board members received their annual stipend this week.
Oh. I better get a whole penny.
Zon, are you seconded, Zon? Okay, Zon seconded. Is there any further discussion of the warrants?
Well, clearly there were some major expenses.
Yes, let's hear about those.
The major expenses were,
Would you like me to?
yes, go ahead.
So the $3.47 million is our annual payment to the school district. The expense warrant of $122,588.32, that is for Guilford residents who overpaid their taxes this year. And the expense warrant 2209, a small amount of that is our regular expense warrant, but the majority of it is our appropriation payments to social service agencies and our beloved fire department.
Right.
Thank you, Peter. Any further discussion or questions? Yes, Zon? Yes, Zon?
The agenda that the agenda that I'm looking at has a different figure than the one Veranda read. I just want to make sure that
Did I get something wrong?
I don't know.
I heard it too. I think she incorrectly read expense warrant 2209.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
3,400,000.
No, 2209.
Oh, 2209, okay. Yes, $386,317.92.
Okay.
Is
Perfect,
that,
thank you.
All right? and
that's
so-
not what
and
I'm
then
so
the to-
sorry.
No, that's all right, but the total is the total that you
Yes.
gave, right?
It is. I checked the total 3 times, so it is correct.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion or questions? Then we'll take a vote. Zon?
Aye.
Rusty?
Aye.
Veranda?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Richard? Aye. The motion carries and the warrants will be paid. Thank you very much. Other business, I'd like to make a motion that the Guilford Select would move to enter executive session to discuss a legal matter per 1 V.S.A. 313 KF.
No, 1F, sorry.
1F.
Yep.
1F. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Michael. Is there any?
Am I invited to that or no?
Yes, you are.
So you might want to amend your,
Oh, then my motion includes and invite Town Administrator Peter Rude.
I'll second that too.
Thank you, Michael. The motion has been seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay, I shall take the vote then. Zon?
Aye.
Rusty?
Aye.
Veranda?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Richard? Aye. Okay,
Okay.
we're going to enter into executive session. The Guilford Select Board is exiting executive session at 7:33 p.m. And I'd like to motion that we further engage the law firm of Monahan, Saphir, and Dukin for a legal matter. Do I have a second? Miranda. Is there any discussion? I shall take the roll. Zon?
Aye.
Rusty?
Aye.
Miranda?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Richard, aye. That motion carries. Thank you very much. All right, now on to the
you
next.
seconded Miranda?
Yes, she did. On to communications.
Okay.
I do not have any, but I know you do.
Okay, I do. I have a letter that I'd like to read from Michelle Frazee, and I shall do that now. To the Guilford Select Board, the Planning Commission has worked diligently on creating the town plan through the last 6 years. The decision to release all the board was ill-timed. Members of the Select Board knew we were 1 week away from sending the plan out to the adjoining towns to further the process towards a town forum which is required to pass the town plan. The town plan cannot be passed without an active planning commission. The lack of understanding the process is concerning. We must have a functioning planning commission to present the plan, and they need to be present at the town forum to answer any questions of what, why, how each part of the document was created. Now this is not possible, and the town will be starting over. The statements read in the last Select Board meeting about the Planning Commission contained a number of concerning errors. The Select Board failed to bring any of these concerns about the Planning Commission to any commission members. Had this happened, we could have worked to address these issues rather than have the entire Planning Commission disbanded without notice. The Planning Commission was never supposed to hand over the plan in January of 2020. Throughout the course of drafting the town plan, we were in continual communication with Wyndham Regional Commission to ensure we were on schedule. The Planning Commission was on course to meet the deadline of June 23rd, 2020, when COVID closed down everything in March 2020. We took a break at that point and resumed meetings in November 2020, knowing we had 90 days after the state of emergency was lifted. We have met consistently since. We have had 9 meetings this year, not 6. When there was not a quorum, we held a special meeting to keep things moving forward as quickly as possible. Many things have changed throughout the year, and we wanted to make sure they were represented in the town plan. We have worked closely with the Conservation Commission, WRC, and others to best protect the town and ensure the town plan draft contains updated and correct information. The timing of this removal of the Planning Commission is a detriment to the town. We are currently without a town plan, and had this not happened, we could have been protected by one before the end of the year. I am willing to try to help pull things back together if given the opportunity, but I will also need to have 4 other ex-members agree to this. Again, this decision was untimely and misinformed. I have greatly enjoyed working with each of the members of the past board, even when we disagreed. A strong board should not always agree. I want to thank all of the past planning commissioners for their service to the town in this volunteer role. With respect, Michelle Frazee, Planning Commission Chair, 2013 to 2021. Are there any other
I have no other
communications?
communications.
Oh, well, what about the one from, about the guns and the noise?
Oh, yes, Richard, that's right, thank you, Miranda. I thought I had that one here, I don't know if I printed it out.
So you can just summarize it.
We had a communication from Rich Chalfone, who lives in Guilford at Packer Corners Road, complaining about the unbelievable, it sounded like automatic gunfire and bombs bursting in air on this past Sunday, yesterday. Rich was very upset. He wanted to know whether the select board could do anything about the matter. I consulted with Peter, and we, as it turns out, we can't. I spoke to Rich personally on Sunday, and I said that he should call, I asked him to call the Vermont State Police and the Massachusetts State Police, and he did, and they were of no help to him. So that was basically the essence of his communication. I apologize for not printing it out. I
have it right in front
okay,
of me. I don't know whether you want.
Sure.
It's up to the select board. You don't have to read all communications.
You think I
unless-
summarized it adequately?
I think that, he expressed grave concern about the possibility of somebody walking in the woods and getting shot. And following this letter, I agreed that I would try to question people in along Old County Road on the way to Massachusetts to see if I could find out any more information and to try to settle this if I can in a neighborly way.
Is the noise coming from the Leiden Range?
No, it is not coming from the Leiden Range.
It's usually coming from the Leiden Range, but on Labor Day and yesterday, it was much closer than that and in a different direction.
And it was also qualitatively different.
Oh, very much so.
From the the Leiden Rifle Range, as it's constituted now, has its standards, and these and this firing and booming were definitely different. So
in regard to, I just wanted to say in regard to Michelle Frazee's communication, the select board is working on a response to that letter, and we will have at our next meeting that response on the agenda for the select board meeting of, what is it, the 22nd? Of the 22nd of November.
Ann Ryder has her hand up.
Yes, Ann?
Thank you for saying that, Richard. I was surprised and interested that the letter was read after you read the letter about the guns, there was quite a bit of discussion, but not after Michelle's letter, none. And I, as a member of the public, I feel that this warrants more of a discussion. Her letter certainly raised questions and concerns, and I would very much like to hear and understand the select board response because as Michelle mentioned, the timing of the letter coming out when the town plan was finally finished kind of stunned me. So it sounds like that will be an agenda item at the next meeting. And I hope that as well as the select board response, you allow time for discussion.
Yes, we certainly will. That's in the plan. And there are other.
We should really move since these items weren't, they're communications, they're not matters of discussion on the agenda, so I would recommend moving on.
Yes, okay, but did I see a hand up? Or, yes, Michelle?
I just want to say that it's great that you'll put it in 2 weeks out, but again, it's a complete detriment to the town because another 2 weeks of waiting, and then it's another 30 days. Like the whole process, like we're looking into the new year at best, and I don't know that I can pull 5 people back. I know the other officers that were standing with me don't want to do it now, and I'm not sure that I will by that point because it's infuriating. The lack of understanding, like I wrote in the letter, of how important it is to have us protected by this and to keep putting it off and to not give it more precedence. I gave this to you in time, and it should warrant. You talked about this going on around Packard's Corner and didn't even say anything around my letter, and that should have had a little bit of communication around it. It truly should, because this.
No, Michelle, we plan to put it up on the agenda of the next meeting and to thoroughly.
But that's another 2 weeks, Richard. Like there could be things that are decided so action could be taken sooner. And like to just keep putting it out 2 weeks and 2 weeks, like there is so much more that has to happen once, if you decide, if people are still around wanting to actually be a part of it. Like what you're doing right now is it's really bad for Guilford. And I'm saying that on video. I turned myself on because I've stood behind this. I've been doing this for 8 years, longer than any of you have been sitting there at that table. And I know how these things work. And I have talked at length with Wyndham Regional. And the only reason we were after the September 15th deadline was because we were waiting on new maps from Patty Smith. We had to rewrite the land use section because of things that have gone on in Guilford. And it was really important to do so and have that in town. We got new maps on community facilities from Jeff Nugent to enunciate all the things. And those things have taken time. And for you guys to not understand all that process, hard work, and just throw it and just keep passing it off right now, like it deserved a much quicker response. In 2 weeks out, I'm done, but I'm just saying that on the video.
Know that I responded to you, your letter the minute I got it. I responded to you.
And I'm sorry, but it felt like throwing a dog a bone. Like I
will say to you that the select board is working on this. We've been working on this since we received your letter. We've been working on it since the select board made a motion to do what it did. And we need time. We've been in discussions with Wyndham Regional. We've been in discussions with legal counsel. And so we are working on it. And the select board is at this time not prepared to fully respond to your letter. And we are working on the planning commission.
I'm going to say this right now. As the day goes by, as each person that I've spoken to on the planning commission, at first, when they read it, they were like, yes, Michelle, I'll stand beside you. But as each day goes by, including myself, I don't think I'll be there and you guys will be starting over. So just know that.
Okay, thank you. All right, and what about actions from the previous meeting?
You moved to switch to a .gov registration, you moved to join the National Opioid Settlement, and you made your decision on the recent conversation about the Planning Commission.
Okay.
As far as actions from this meeting, let's see, you moved to purchase the 1-ton truck. You moved to join the consortium of towns in Wyndham County Sheriff's Department for an animal control officer. I am to follow up with Mark Anderson on that matter. And you moved to engage Monahan, Safar, and Dukin on a legal matter.
Thank you. All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to
Thank you,
adjourn.
Michael. Do I have a second? Thank you, Veranda. Is there any discussion? All right, I'll take the roll. Zahn?
Aye.
Rusty?
Aye.
Veranda?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Richard? Aye. Thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned.